Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Simone, and today I want to talk about possession. Dum, dum, dum. So recently I had some very interesting experiences, and I will be honest, they were scary. I didn't think I was going to be ready to talk about this for a long time, but here I am, ready to share because I think it's a really important topic, especially for those who are practicing deep spiritual work, especially those who are learning channeling. So, last year, towards the end of last year, I started learning how to channel. And as I did, the person that I was guiding meditation with started learning channeling. In fact, she didn't start learning it, it just started happening automatically during her meditation sessions. I didn't know what was going on with her at the time. I thought it could have been channeling or it could have been Kundalini energy, but I didn't want to make the assumption. And I also thought, is it really possible that it's channeling? Could it be possible that she could be channeling this easily, especially when she's so new at the practice? And then one day we were trying to figure it out together, and suddenly, whatever it was dropped in unexpectedly. And she turned to me and she said, "Simone, it just dropped in." And as she said that, my immediate response was nervousness. So I was like, "What just dropped in? What do you mean it just dropped in? What just dropped in?" And she's like, "The thing that happens during my meditations." So I thought, okay, well, how can we figure out if this is channeling or not? And I decided to ask a question. So I asked, is so and so channeling? Eventually, we figured out how to calibrate. We got the answer yes. We learned how to get no. But as her journey progressed, I mean, she loved it. She loved the fact that she could communicate with beyond the physical. She loved the fact that she received daily guidance. And as her channeling progressed, other entities started dropping in. And sometimes they would refuse to leave. And sometimes they would kind of trick her into believing that they had good intentions, but they didn't always have good intentions. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about that and the importance of your mind frame and your vibration while working, doing that kind of work, while channeling, while doing any kind of spiritual work, basically, because the rules apply across the board. She started astral projecting when she was in high school, but she had no way of kind of understanding what was happening to her. So the only way that she could kind of get any information about it was to watch scary movies. That was the only source of information she had. Scary movies that had a spiritual context. And we all know that those movies are very good at keeping you out of your sleep. So she learned about her experiences through horrors, through possession movies, through movies that make you not want to go to bed with the lights off at night. And her whole understanding of spirituality was basically centered and her foundation was placed in this understanding that spirituality is scary, that things beyond the seen are terrifying, that they cause you to twist and distort your body, that they cause you to float and get stuck on walls and your eyes go black and dark and you turn into a zombie and you disappear and something else speaks through you with a scary voice. And this was her understanding of channeling, basically. Whew. So when I learned that her learning first came from those movies, I knew immediately that there was going to be a lot of work that needed to be done to undo that understanding, that those beliefs about spirituality were so deeply rooted over so many years that as she was going into her spiritual journey, especially as she started channeling, that was going to be an influence. So when I say negative entities, I just mean spirits or entities that don't necessarily have the highest vibration. That doesn't mean that they're bad. That just means that they could be on a self-serving path. Maybe they're not on a self-serving path. Maybe some of them are on a path to serve the collective or serve whatever they're serving, the whole. But they just don't have a broad enough perspective to guide us in a way that will always be beneficial. So you can imagine your perspective, right? Your perspective may be this narrow in comparison to the whole, to how broad perspective can be. But this doesn't mean that you have bad intentions when you're giving advice to somebody, for example. You may have very good intentions, but because your perspective is so narrow, you can't see how the advice that you give could potentially influence a negative outcome in the future, right? So it's the same thing, that spiritual entities could have good intentions, but their perspective could be maybe this narrow. So if you're channeling something of a higher vibration, the perspective widens a lot more. They're able to see beyond, or able to see much more of the picture, and so able to kind of guide in a way that, from seeing all the different ways that this could pan out, what would be the best way to guide that doesn't influence, for example, or take away from your free will, or influence into a negative outcome that maybe would not be in your best interest. So sometimes these dudes drop in and they may have good intentions, but the perspective is still limited. You don't want those dudes hanging around. And sometimes dudes are dropping in that don't have good intentions. So these started to drop in more frequently, and she could feel that the energy was different, so she knew that it wasn't her higher self that she had been channeling for months before that. And she would ask them to leave, and they would refuse to leave. And this started to kind of scare her. And the fear started to drag her back into the understanding of, oh my gosh, this is what I remember seeing in a movie once, and this is what happens next. And the mind starts to create this story. And as the story is created, the possibility of living out the story starts to kind of unfold, because now it's playing out in our minds first, and everybody knows the law of attraction. You need to think it first and then feel it next, and then it manifests in your reality. And she was thinking it, she was feeling the fear, and it started to manifest in her reality. So, do I believe that there is some demonic presence? No, I don't. But I choose not to allow space for something that is created outside of source. Everything comes from source, right? So everything that comes from source, there has to be balance, right? Positive, negative, masculine, feminine, day and night, happy, sad, in order to have any kind of experience. If there is no polarity or duality, we cannot have any kind of experience, right? So with that understanding, I have to kind of make peace with the fact that there are going to be self-serving dudes and dudes who serve everybody else, who serve the collective, who serve humanity, who serve source, right? And sometimes the self-serving dudes are going to come in and try to kind of manipulate you, especially when you're new at this. And if we don't have a strong enough mind to stay either centered or to continually bring ourselves back to that center, or further along into a kind of positive experience, in other words, raising our vibration, we allow for more of these guys to drop in. We allow for more control over us. We allow for more of a reason for them to stick around, because now we're sending out the energy that they feed off, the fear, the terror, the horror. And the more that these realities kind of play out for us, the more we manifest this fear into our lives, the more they get out of it. And the cycle continues, and we go deeper and deeper into this hole. So basically what happened with her is that she was going deeper and deeper into this hole. There was an element of mind and an element of energy and an element of whatever force, whatever entity was kind of stepping in and influencing this whole cycle of events. What needed to happen was that the mental situation needed to change, so that the energetic situation could change, so that these dudes could have no work, nothing to be gained in this situation, and so leave. But she couldn't break the cycle, and it spiraled and spiraled out of control. And I watched this whole scenario play out, and it was so difficult for me to see this thing playing out and feel so helpless to helping. Because the more I could see it playing out, the more I tried to kind of guide the situation in the direction of becoming aware, of breaking the cycle of fear, of taking that power back, of not giving so much control. That was another element. So much control was given over to these entities because she trusted them so much, that she trusted that they had her best interests at heart, and stopped making decisions for herself. Stop saying, now is not a good time for me, please come back later. Let's have a conversation later. Or, no, I don't wish to have a conversation with you. I never wish to have a conversation with you. If you don't leave now, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to continue on with my day and completely ignore the fact that you are there. You're going to get bored, and you're going to find that I'm not giving you what you want, and you're going to leave, right? But if we're not taking that power over our physical bodies, over our minds, over our emotional states, it's going to send us into a spiral that's going to be a feeding frenzy for anything that spots, oh, here's a negative vibe, with an open channel. With an open channel, this is the perfect breeding ground for me to get exactly what I need for as long as I need to. The most important thing when doing spiritual work is the mind. If you are not able to keep your mind as clear and centered as possible on a specific day, at a specific time when you're doing your practice, don't do the practice. Don't do the practice until you feel okay enough to do the practice. That is the one piece of very valuable information that I can give to anybody who is newly practicing channeling, astral projection, whatever other form of deep spiritual work that allows space for entities to kind of worm their way in. Make sure that your mind is balanced. Make sure that you are centered. Do a little bit of yoga before your session. Do a 10-minute meditation. Even 5 minutes. If you're good at bringing yourself into that center really quickly, 5 minutes is fine too. Take a sage stick or something, whatever works for you, and just smudge yourself. Play some high vibrational music for a moment. What else? What else works for you? Do some Reiki on yourself for 5 minutes if you're a Reiki practitioner. Whatever it is that brings you into that alignment and into that center, do that thing before doing your spiritual practice. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are. And I really hope that this video has been helpful, because this comes from a place of my own personal learning. And it took me through months of discomfort. Even though I knew exactly what needed to be done, it did put me into a state of fear. I worked really hard to keep bringing myself out of that fear, and I stopped doing my practices for a while, just because I knew that I was vulnerable to negative experiences, and I didn't want for those experiences because I was mentally dealing with the negative experiences of the person that I was guiding, and I needed to stay as centered as possible. So I stopped my practice for a while until I felt balanced enough, until I was able to kind of clear that energy of fear enough to feel comfortable to come into my practices again. Good luck with your practices, and I wish you all the best. And feel free to comment below. I love hearing about what's going on with you guys and how your practices are going, because I learn from that too, right? If you haven't yet, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and see you on the next one. Have a good one.